Hi, I'm Steven, the calculator guy, and I've finished like 4 straight days of the Cosmoverse, watching innumerable talks, talking to a bunch of different protocols and chains, and talking tokenomics and fundamentals, and my head is sort of overflowing with everything Cosmos. Now, let's talk about Cosmoverse Day 3, what the alpha was, what I think it sort of means for the ecosystem, and then finally, my overall thoughts on this ecosystem, the Cosmos ecosystem, having had gone through a gauntlet of sort of knowledge dumps into my brain. Also, me not having been, the most versed Cosmos person prior to this. So, what was the alpha drop? Like yesterday, there was a lot of hype for what was going to be announced on like the final day, and it was a pretty big announcement. Though a lot of people sort of already knew it was coming out. The announcement was that USDC native or native USDC is coming to the Cosmos ecosystem. That is going to happen in the form of a consumer chain. So there's going to be a consumer chain. If you don't know, consumer chains validate on the Cosmos hub. Guys, it's been a week. So consumer chains don't have their own nodes or validators. In fact, instead they send their transactions to the L1. It's just like an L2 if you're familiar with how Arbitrum or optimistic Ethereum works. So that's good for the Cosmos hub because now it's going to attract all these transactions, all transaction fees from this consumer chain. Now, this consumer chain is probably going to have a ton of volume because people are going to be super interested or excited about sending USDC from, I don't know, their Circle account straight into the Cosmos ecosystem without having to ever experience a bridge risk, right? There's no Axelar, there's no gravity, there's no even multi-chain, there's no bridge risks, and there's no bridge wrap assets. So it's totally native USDC. So it's not vulnerable to things like what happened with the Horizon Bridge or the Nomad Bridge or the Wormhole Bridge. That's going to instill a ton of institutional confidence. Now, how fast that institutional confidence is going to come, I don't know. Hard to say. I believe this announcement is saying like it's coming early 2023, right? That's when native USDC is going to come. So that was like announcement number one. And the same day, halfway across the world, Circle announced that they're going to have interchain transferability for their native USDC. Now, right now, if you want to transfer USDC from AVAX to Ethereum, right? Both chains that have native USDC, you have to use a bridge and you have to use USDCE, which I believe is multi-chain USDC. So you can't just send native USDC from one chain to another chain because they both have it. That's impossible. But it's going to be possible very soon. So what this additionally means for the Cosmos ecosystem in specific is that it's reducing the utility of Axelar USDC. That's just that I don't think that's an arguable point. Now, what does this mean for Axelar? What does this mean for Osmosis? I think that's an interesting question, right? One could argue that all of the pairs that are currently USDC Axelar are going to be switched to, that pair in USDC. I don't think that's going to happen because that wouldn't make sense for a number of reasons. What I think makes more sense is to have a USDC Axelar USDC pair and then route all of the swaps through that. So if you want to swap Atom to USDC, you would go, the router would swap it from Atom to USDCE to USDC. And this is good for Osmosis clearly because it's additional transaction for the probably the most common swap type or one of the most common swap types. It's also not bad for Axelar because Axelar is still getting transaction fees, still has liquidity, and still has a use case. Now that use case is going to diminish sort of over time, and I don't know if new IBC chains would want Axelar USDC as much as they're going to want native USDC. But there are still a lot of chains without native USDC, and the way you would get USDC from those chains onto the Cosmos ecosystem is through Axelar, the Axelar bridge. So there's still a lot of utility. Like you still have Axelar ETH, Axelar BTC, or Axelar Rep BTC, et cetera, et cetera, all these Axelar assets. So it's not like Axelar no longer has a use case. So that was a big announcement. Now, why else does this matter? Well, again, you have to think in terms of what Atom 2.0 and what Atom is trying to do, right? What are they trying to do? They're trying to give value back to Atom. How are they going to do that? Well, through these consumer chains, right? So especially consumer application chains, I think is a way of thinking about this. So you're building an application, and you don't build applications on the Cosmos Hub. That's just a thing that isn't done. Instead, you either build them on chains that already exist, or you build your own chain for its application. And that's very common in the Cosmos ecosystem. I think there are over 50 different chains right now. Some of them like single purpose. So consumer chains are kind of like the easiest way to do that. instead of having to bootstrap your chain with validators, which makes no sense for an application chain, you can just say, okay, I'm going to create this L2, which is according to some people relatively easy to do. I'm not a developer. I can't judge the difficulty. And then you're sending all of your transactions from your consumer chain straight to the Cosmos hub. That's great because now Atom stakers are getting those fees. Whereas right now they're not getting like anything in fees because who is using the Cosmos hub for transactions? Only people who are onboarding Atom and then taking that Atom off the chain, right? That's the only real use of the Cosmos hub right now, at least in terms of revenue for them. So consumer chains, as more and more consumer chains pop up, that means more transactions are being routed back to the hub, which means more transaction volume. When you have native USDC, that's pretty interesting because you can imagine billions of dollars flowing in and out, or like billions of dollars in volume. So like inflow and outflow, and that's going to be a lot of transactions. Now, I don't know. I could model, and I haven't modeled yet because it's the day after the announcement. How much transaction revenue that you know, given different parameters, how much transaction revenue that would make for stakers. But it can be modeled, and I think it should be modeled because that would give us a lot more interesting perspective than just like saying it's going to be a lot of money coming in, so maybe transaction is going to go like we don't know. And I think that's really it's a meaningful operation to do. Uh, there's also information. There's also narratives about the what's the word for it? I don't quite remember, but effectively it just means that all these consumer chains, there's a reality in which the consumer chain transactions also send the consumer chain asset to the validators. So validators would not only be getting Atom transaction fees, but they'd also be getting like USDC in the case of the USDC consumer chain, or other consumer chains may also be getting whatever their asset is. Stride is another example of okay. Some things that should be said is like there's going to be a lot of consumer chains. Specifically with like liquid stake validation, they're probably all going to have their own L1 plus a consumer chain. And there's reasons for that related to the liquid staking module, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds. It's not really what I'm trying to do. And so I guess this sort of transitions us very easily into the next part, which is what do I think about the Cosmos ecosystem now having been inundated in this information for a few days. Uh, I should preface all of this by saying that I still think that the macroeconomic conditions are the most important, and that all volatile assets are to some extent beholden to uh, the asset class, cryptocurrency, as well as the macroeconomic conditions that affect that asset class. So even if I was really excited about the Cosmos ecosystem, I'm still going to consider the macroeconomics and the asset class before I think about how bullish or bearish I am on Atom. So like if I'm very bearish, then I'm still going to be delta neutral, or I'm still going to, I'm still going to try to get yields that are not exposed to volatility, unless I want to do like shorts. But so that being said, I am very excited about the infrastructure of the Cosmos ecosystem. I think that what they're building is very, very cool and applicable to a lot of different places in crypto and DeFi. So like composable, that tech is to me sort of mind blowing. Being able to transfer, not bridge, transfer native assets from other chains that are non-IBC, like the Near ecosystem or the Polkadot ecosystem, onto the IBC ecosystem or the Cosmos ecosystem. And they're doing that through relayers, right? You have relayers on both sides. They cross-prove transactions a bunch of times, and then if the relayers agree, then the assets are effectively sent through the relayer instead of like shoved into a treasury, and then a receipt for that portion is printed on the other side. And if that treasury gets stolen, that receipt is worthless, right? Instead of that, which is the bridge model, you're going to have the relayer model, which is so much safer. I think provides a ton of utility to the entire crypto ecosystem. Not great for bridges, but great for the consumer, great for the DeFi user. Uh, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that the tech is super interesting. The teams are very smart. The things that they're doing interest me because I love liquid staking. I love being able to delta neutralize stuff. I love perp swaps for delta neutralization and shorting. And all of that stuff is being built. They're also building chains that are very interesting in terms of like the amount of speed they're going to have, and speed also brings in a certain type of utility related to financial derivatives. And so like yes, I'm understanding the ethos and the mission and like the utility of the Cosmos ecosystem, and I'm bought into it. I believe in it to a very real extent. Like it makes sense to me now having been here. That doesn't mean that if I were to go to a NearCon or if I was to go to like a Solana conference next week, I wouldn't understand and then buy into those narratives as well. I guess what I'm just trying to do is get as much information that I can get in order to understand the narratives and then find value propositions, because value propositions exist all on all ecosystems, and it's just like it's up to the analyst to find them. But I am particularly interested in Cosmos now, having been here, and I do think Atom 2.0 will bring value to Atom. I do think liquid staking is going to. Okay, so here's my thing with liquid staking. Look at Ohm and Geom as an example, right? I know no one wants to talk about Ohm and Geom, but Geom is the only thing being used right now. Wrap Memo is another example. You're not using, I don't want to say the word out loud, but so these liquid staked assets, effectively, right? These interest bearing assets have taken the utility away from the original asset. Ohm, no one uses Ohm anymore. Everyone uses Geom, right? If liquid staking gets all of the utility in the Cosmos ecosystem, there's an argument to be made that like ST Atom, Q Atom, STK Atom, P Atom, like those are going to be the assets with the utility, and then Atom is going to sort of lack utility, and who knows what that really means for the ecosystem. Also, there's a ton of narratives related to leveraging up liquid staked assets, and while I love this as an investor who can be relatively early to some of these opportunities, and the yield is great for me, I do wonder if there is a vulnerability in leveraging everything, because if you are cycling around the DeFi ecosystems right now, it seems like there's a ton of interest in like hyper leveraging stable assets or stable pairs, which is inherently interesting to me as someone who likes yield. But also, I do wonder if we're creating more and more and more and more pressure, and if that pressure creates a vulnerability that we don't necessarily want to see, like when housing market securities or whatever they were called, bonds, or you know what I'm talking about, 2008, when those were hyper leveraged, right? So that when there was a point of failure, there was a massive collapse. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's something that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind, right? What is the effect of this leverage going to have long term if everything is getting hyper leveraged? Okay, that's pretty much it, guys. So I have been humbled and excited and informed by the Cosmos community. It's a great community, and I'm way interested in continuing to learn more, and maybe getting really into governance and the ecosystems. Yeah, so it was a very positive experience, and I get it. I get the narratives now, and I'm excited to start participating more. I mean, I'm already doing DeFi and Cosmos, but I'm interested in participating more in these ecosystems. And I will say that I'm going to change my investment style from purely delta neutral and taking those yields and compounding them into stables to probably being delta neutral on my yield, but taking all of the assets that I get as yield, like Osmosis or Juno or Atom, and being long on those. So, I'm not converted to a moon boy who wants to be long on everything, but I am now seeing the utility and the narratives, and so I'm willing to be long on my yield, which still means that my initial is delta neutral. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to talk or learn more or discuss with the most educated community, in my opinion, in DeFi, then please do join the DeFi Dojo. You can join for free. We have 10,000 members in the free section. We have 1,000 members in the paid section. The paid section clearly gets a lot more resources and has a lot more conversations, and gets a lot more, they have a lot of, we do private videos and things like that, and talk, and we have community calls, and like there's a bunch of builders from teams all over DeFi who are there and hanging out. So there's a lot of utility, and I think it's amazing. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. The day after tomorrow, the rate on the DeFi Dojo goes to $40 a month. So if you want to lock into $30 a month and still get that free 1 month trial, today and tomorrow would be the day to do it. Thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.